Greetings, everybody. Chris Hislop from the Montana World Affairs Council, and this is another episode of Global Perspectives on Security. This is our short version webcast where we dig a little bit deeper into the issues of the day with our friend Mick Mulroy, who's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, a retired CIA paramilitary operations officer, and United States Marine. He's a national security analyst and co-founder of the Lobo Institute and a board member at the Plato Institute in Athens, Greece. Mick, how you doing?
Very busy, Chris, but good to be back with you.
Well, Mick, for 2 years, nearly solid, we've been talking about the situation in Ukraine. But today we're going to shift gears a little bit. The world is watching the situation in Israel and Gaza following the Hamas attacks on 7 October. So I'm wondering if you can update us a little bit, first of all, on the situation. Over to you.
Yes, Chris. So a lot has gone into how we got into the situation. But I'm going to start with the situation because we won't have time to go over that. So Hamas on October 7th launched a very significant attack. Over 1,000, around 1,500 assaulters came in air, land, and sea, killed over 1,300 Israelis, and kidnapped, in the rough estimate, around 220 both Israelis, Americans, and several other nationalities, and brought them back into Gaza. So it caught the Israelis by surprise, obviously an intelligence failure and a security failure, if you will, as they didn't even respond quick enough. So that will have to be dealt with later, since they're right in the middle of essentially their 9/11. And they have then, as a result of that, the Israelis, the IDF, has called up 300,000 reservists. And so that's in addition to 170, 200,000 active forces. And they have started what's called the preparatory phase of a combat operation with airstrikes, detailed intelligence gathering, which they obviously didn't have a lot of. And they are doing that right now while they'll posture and assemble their ground forces to be able to go into Gaza, because the stated Israeli aim here is the complete destruction of Hamas. And in military terms, that means you render them completely military incapable of performing their military intent. So that's going to require boots on the ground, because they have hundreds of miles of tunnels, and you can't defeat them via air. At the same time, we have a humanitarian crisis that is only going to get more significant, and it's something that we also need to address. So the international community has to focus both on Israel's right to defend itself and go in and defeat this terrorist organization, Hamas, which is designated as such by the United States, but also deal with all the innocent Palestinians, 2 million of them, who are currently being cut off from food, water, power, and medicine. So there is a lot going on right now.
Mick, not only in Gaza is it going on, of course, there's a concern that this conflict may expand to northern Israel and Lebanon, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank. So could you talk a little bit about those concerns and what would happen in the event of an expansion of this conflict?
Yes, and that is something that the United States is very concerned of, because the commonality in everything you mentioned is Iran. Iran provides Hamas, which is an acronym. It actually means Islamic Jihad. They came out of the Muslim Brotherhood, but they support them. 90% of their military capacity comes from Iran or is paid directly by Iran. They support Hezbollah, to your point about the north, up in Lebanon. And Lebanon has a much more significant military capacity than even Hamas. So if Hezbollah gets involved, then Israel has to deal with two fronts. And then Iran also supports multiple groups in the West Bank and Syria, so around Golan Heights, that also could be involved. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4 potential front war, plus the Houthis, who Iran also supports in Yemen, which you wouldn't think would be involved in this, but they have cruise missiles and drones that can reach Israel. So that could be a 5-front war. That is why the United States has put 2 aircraft carrier strike groups off the coast of Israel. They've sent a Marine force of 2,000 Marines, which is called the Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable, is now afloat going there. And so the United States is very concerned about this getting beyond just Gaza and necessitating the United States becoming directly militarily involved.
Well, Mick, thanks a lot for making sense out of this very difficult and extremely volatile situation. Of course, we hope for the very best, but we know that the situation there is far from resolved. So we would look forward to maybe talking with you again next week or so to give us an update. In the meantime, let me quickly thank the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation and Stockman Bank for helping us bring this and so many more programs to you. Thanks to Mick Mulroy and his colleagues at the Lobo Institute. You can catch Mick on any number of international news sources, ABC, Al Jazeera, and others. So if you want some more of his expert and analysis, check those out. Until then, Mick, thanks a lot. Take care and bye-bye.